Hi there, I'm Vincent Bos and I provide dating and self-improvement advice. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing what your ex thinks when you chase them. I provide audio coaching for breakup recovery, trying to get an ex back, attracting someone new, and life coaching. Visit www.dateme.tips for more details. Please check your spam and junk folders if you are expecting an email from me. Check out my socials for extra content. The links are in the description. So now let's get back into today's podcast, and today we are discussing what your ex thinks when you chase them. So if you have been dumped and want to try to get your ex back, your natural instinct is to chase them via texting, calling, writing letters, or trying to speak face to face. But what if you continue to pursue time and time again? In today's podcast, I'll be discussing 3 things your ex is likely to think if you chase them. So let's get straight into this, and point number 1 is this is awkward. So first of all, we're going to be discussing about what happens after the breakup if you start chasing your ex. Now please don't get this confused. At the time of a breakup, you are absolutely able to say your piece. If you have been dumped by text, over a call, face to face, however it takes place, you are certainly within your rights and able to say your piece. You have been dumped, you don't want to be dumped. You can say, I don't want this to end. You can explain why you don't think this should end. You can apologize if necessary. You can explain a situation if something has been misunderstood. What we're talking about here is not explanations and asking to try and work things out during the breakup conversation. No, what we're talking about is chasing post-breakup, when the dust has settled, when it's clear that your ex-dumper means what they say, and even though you have stated, I don't want this to end, I'm really sorry for doing this, can't we work this out? If and when you've said those things, and then your dumper still decides to action the breakup and become your dumper, well, this is where the dust has settled. And if you start to chase your ex beyond this point, this is what we're discussing today. So initially, your dumper is likely to think, this is awkward. You know, we've had the breakup conversation, I've said why I want to end this, it's over. And yet, a few days later, you are reaching out to them. And they're thinking, this is awkward, because in essence, they didn't even want to become the dumper. You've got to recognise that your former partner didn't get in a relationship with you with the aim of dumping you a few months or years or even decades down the line. They didn't have that plan. They didn't think, well, I want to get together with this person just to dump them at some stage. Instead, you've got to realise that unfortunately, your ex-dumper lost romantic emotional attraction. They didn't want to end the relationship. They felt they had to. They felt they had no choice. For them to live a life full of happiness, fulfillment and satisfaction, they didn't believe that you two together was going to give them those feelings beyond this point. It doesn't mean that you weren't good together originally. It doesn't mean that they didn't love you initially. But what it does mean is that right now, they don't believe that their happiness and fulfillment is within this relationship. So they didn't plan to end this. They felt they had to end this. And that's really important to realise, because then you can start to see, for most dumpers, this is a stressful situation. For most dumpers, this is not ideal. For most dumpers, they've been thinking about this for weeks, if not months, worrying about if, how and when they're going to action the breakup. So if and when they actually do it, they've already checked out in their mind, because this has probably most of the time been a long time coming. And they've got to the stage where they feel there's no going back. So when they climb that mountain and get to the top of it, they feel that that is the toughest part. They feel that they now need to breathe a sigh of relief that they've done something that they didn't really want to do, but they felt they had to do. So with that mindset, if you as a dumpee then start reaching out to them, they're going to be feeling awkward because they don't want to hurt you. They don't want you to be upset. A lot of the time, dumpers are worried about how their dumpee is going to be feeling. They're not aiming to hurt you. They're doing this because they feel they have no choice. So it just feels kind of awkward that they've ended the relationship. You've said your piece. They've said their piece. They don't want to change their mind. And a few days or maybe even hours after the breakup seems to have been finalised and settled, you're still contacting them. Now, maybe a few hours later is understandable. Maybe a day or 2 days later is understandable. But we're talking fairly soon post-breakup, so maybe days up to a week or so. But they're now starting to think, you should understand that this is over and I certainly need space. And if you keep going towards them, texting, calling, knocking on their door, waiting outside where they work, writing them a letter, sending it through the mail, sending it in the post to them, this is just going to make them feel awkward and weird. I didn't want to hurt you, but I don't feel we're right together. Please accept this. They feel awkward, they feel strange, they feel stressed. This is how most dumpers are going to view the initial chasing that a dumpee is quite likely to do. And listen, dumpees, if you have chased your ex in the way I've just described, this is very common. Now, I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, but please don't feel it's unusual for a few days or a week or so post-breakup to try and reach out to your dumper once more. Again, I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, I'm just saying it's very common. So you're not alone if you have done it, but in my belief, it's not the right path to take. It might feel natural, but it's not likely to help you. Because if and when they action the breakup, they've checked out. And this is where you need to understand their position. So now let's get into point number 2 and the second point of today's podcast. Please like this video if you're watching on YouTube. And if you have the new hype feature, please hype this video as well. If you like my content, subscribe to the channel to keep updated. And point number 2 is they aren't listening. So now we're considering what happens if you as a dumpee continue to chase your ex. We're not talking a few days or a week or so post-breakup. We're now talking about many weeks. We're now talking about maybe a month or so. Post-breakup, you're still texting. Now, I'm not saying you're doing it every single day, but every few days. Every few days, you're sending them a text. Every few days, you're trying to give them a call. Maybe you manage to leave it a week, but then you're waiting outside where they work and they can see you standing there and you think, oh, I need to leave a different way. I don't want to speak with my dumpee. So we're now talking weeks, a month or so post-breakup, and you are not getting the message that the relationship is over. Your dumper is likely thinking that you aren't listening. Now, this is really important, in particular if you want to try to get your ex back, because it's possible one of the reasons you were dumped were due to things such as they didn't believe you listened to them, or they didn't believe you communicated effectively. Now, I'm not saying that is the case. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but if it was the case, then think about what's happening right now. You were dumped for not listening to them in the relationship, and now you're certainly not listening to them right now. That is not going to help your cause. Now, even if this has nothing to do with the reason they lost attraction, you have to recognise that your dumper is probably going to be thinking at this point that you are not respecting them. You are not respecting their decision. And this is very, very annoying. At the time of a breakup, your dumper is feeling a very low level of romantic emotional attraction for you. If you want to get them back, you need to start growing that attraction in their mind, certainly not lowering it any further. And yet, if you disrespect them by not listening to what they are saying, you're not going to be growing attraction in their mind. Unfortunately, this level of attraction, which is already low, is going to plummet further. This isn't going to help you get your ex back. This is pushing them further away. I use the example sentence of saying, I've never known anybody chase someone closer towards them. If you are chasing somebody, you're going to make them run further away. And this is why it is very unlikely to help. And this is why if you want to get your ex back after being dumped, most of the time I would suggest never contacting your ex again unless they contact you first. There are a few caveats to that rule, and this is specifically if you are the dumpee, but if you implement my version of the no contact rule as a baseline, this is going to increase your chance of success as I've described in many of my other podcasts. And if you want to speak with me via my audio coaching service, we can really consider your unique position about how this can help your cause in re-attracting your ex by regrowing attraction rather than, as I've just said, lowering it. Because if you are not listening to your dumper's decision weeks, a month or so down the line post-breakup, and you're still texting, you're still calling, you're still writing them letters many, many pages long, do you think they're going to be respecting what you're doing? They're not. They're going to be thinking, you're disrespecting me, so I'm not going to respect your point of view. You're disrespecting me by not listening. You're not hearing me. I am not happy. Just because you want to be with me, why do you get what you want? Why don't you understand that I don't want to be with you because I do not feel happy? If you want to get your ex back, you want them to want to be with you. You can't persuade them. You can't force them. And even if you try to do that, do you actually think this is a healthy position? Not only is it illegal, but it's not going to be a natural connection. You're forcing them to be with you when they don't want to. You don't want that. They certainly don't want that. This has to be natural and organic. So if you keep chasing your ex and they believe you aren't listening and they believe you don't respect them, unfortunately, this is going to get very, very annoying, and that is putting it mildly. Now, if you would like advice and support about how to try and increase the chance of one day getting your ex back, then you may want to consider my audio coaching service, where me and you can speak one-on-one about your unique specific situation. Go to my website, www.dateme.tips, for more information about how I can become your coach and your teammate via my audio coaching service. Talking about your feelings can also improve your mental health. It helps prevent the buildup of negative emotions, which can lead to stress, anxiety, depression, and even physical health issues. Speak your heart to free your mind. So now let's get into point number 3 and the final point of today's podcast. If you feel that this podcast has helped you, then please consider buying me a coffee. The link to do so is in the description. And point number 3 is I'm starting to feel worried. So now we're considering what happens if you continue to chase your dumper many months down the line. So we're not talking days post-breakup. We're not talking weeks. We're not talking up to a month or so. We're talking many months and beyond down the line. And you are still periodically reaching out. Again, this doesn't mean you're doing it every day. You know, some people will say to me, I'm not chasing my ex. I only reach out to them once every few weeks. You've got to understand the cumulative effect this will still have on your dumper. You're not listening, you're not respecting. And if you're going beyond months and months and months of this behaviour, this is when your ex-dumper is likely to start feeling worried. And they're feeling worried for themselves and for you. Now, for themselves, they're starting to feel worried because they don't believe you understand what's going on. And they are starting to consider using that word that nobody wants to hear. But that word is that you might be becoming a stalker. Now, that can be a terrifying word to hear. And you might think, I'm not a stalker. I'm not somebody like that. But then you consider your own behaviour and think, oh my gosh, I'm actually slipping into stalker-like behaviour. Now, even though you might not be reaching out to your ex, you might be paying incredible attention to them to the point of where you've got to question that behaviour as well. Are you checking their social media very, very often? You know, is that healthy for them? And is it certainly healthy for you? You know, I would suggest it's not. This type of behaviour isn't going to help. And that's why the other possibility of why they are feeling worried, which is about you, is very much true. So they are worried for themselves, but they're also starting to get worried for you. And you need to really be looking in the mirror and asking yourself whether you need professional help. But if you are fixated on someone who doesn't want to be in a relationship with you, this is going to be really affecting your mental and possible physical health. I would strongly suggest going to a local doctor if you feel depressed, if you feel that you can't get out of this cycle. It is not healthy. If you want to get your ex back, ironically, you need to be removing your interest from them and focusing on you. This is what you need to do. So if your goal is to get them back, although this can't be guaranteed, you've got to stop chasing them. You've got to stop stalking them. You've got to start focusing on you growing as a person and becoming somebody more attractive, not just to your ex, but to anybody else. Because like I said, we can't guarantee you'll get your ex back, but if you put in the work, you can find someone even better. And that has to be the goal. We need to focus on ourselves and not our ex. If they start to feel worried, if they are very concerned about you or themselves due to your behaviour, they might contact the authorities. And that could get you in some very serious trouble. So please, think about this logically. Take a step back. Try and take a breather and realise that getting your ex back is best achieved by focusing on you rather than them. And chasing someone who doesn't want to be with you is not healthy from your perspective, it's not fair or healthy in their perspective, and it's not going to increase the chance of getting them back. In fact, it's going to have the opposite effect. Now, if you live in the USA and want to support my channel, please consider shopping at Calvin Klein using the affiliate link in the description. Calvin Klein is a fantastic brand to help both men and women look great and feel confident. As a Calvin Klein affiliate, I may earn a commission if you make a purchase at no extra cost to you. Thank you for your support.